Earthbound ROM hacking has never been easier. If you've ever been interested in ROM hacking, the tools Earthbound has are quite powerful. There are already great resources to learn hacking, but I'm making this video guide so even more people can learn to hack Earthbound for themselves. The premier hacking tool for Earthbound is Coilsnake. Coilsnake allows you to decompile an Earthbound ROM into easily readable and editable files. You can download Coilsnake on the official GitHub page, which is linked in the description. Once you acquire and run Coilsnake, you'll see various tabs. Let's start with the Decompile tab. Here we can give Coilsnake a ROM and it will spit out a bunch of individual files that we can edit. It will output in a folder of your choosing. When you give Coilsnake a folder, make sure the folder is completely empty, otherwise the contents of the folder will be erased. Once we have our decompiled ROM, let's try compiling it in the Compile tab. We'll take our folder that we made and recompile it back into a ROM. Where it says base ROM for an Earthbound ROM, Coilsnake will use as a base. Make sure you're okay with this ROM being overwritten. For project, put the path of our decompiled folder. In the output ROM section, you will give Coilsnake the ROM whose data you wish to overwrite. When you hit compile, you will be prompted with adding a header to your base ROM. If you're fine with that ROM being overwritten, hit yes. You'll now be able to compile your ROM. Now open the ROM in an emulator of your choice. It's not going to be any different, which is a good thing, I guess. Important tip, make sure to press save so Coilsnake saves the paths you've given. You can create profiles with saved paths by hitting new. Also, if you press settings, then configure emulator, you can input the executable of the emulator you use so you can run your ROM from Coilsnake. Cool, this is the main functionality of Coilsnake, but there are other things we will discuss. At this point, it's very important you are aware of the best resource for Earthbound hacking knowledge, the wiki page on the Coilsnake GitHub page, linked in the description. It has a whole lot of knowledge on every facet of hacking, and you are absolutely going to want to use it as you create. Also, I'd recommend you copy your new decompilation so you always have the unedited files on hand just in case something goes south. Let's start with editing sprites. You're going to want some sort of pixel art tool. Here's a list of some popular ones. I'm going to use Graphic Scale as it's free. Let's start with enemy sprites. Looking in the battle sprites folder, each enemy has an assigned number. Looking at image number 121, it's the runaway dog. Let's open this in our art program. There are 16 colors, with one of them being the background color that doesn't show up in game. Change up the sprite, then save. You can change up the colors however you want. We can now compile and run our compiled ROM. And look at that. Congratulations, you made a hack. While in this case we modified an existing sprite, we can use this technique to replace enemies with new ones. When it comes to the sizes of enemy sprites, you can use any of these resolutions. It gets a little more difficult with Overworld sprites, however. Earthbound has 8 color palettes. Every single Overworld sprite uses one of these palettes. When editing an Overworld sprite, you cannot use colors from multiple palettes. You are restricted to one color palette for each sprite sheet. You'll find the Overworld sprites in the SpriteGroup folder. For more details, please see the Coilsnake Wiki Overworld Sprites page, linked in the description. For more details about any of this stuff, you can look on the wiki. There are lots of files in our decompiled ROM that are going to allow you to make changes to the game. If you want to edit these files, you're going to want a good text editor. Visual Studio Code and Notepad++ are good options as you get extremely useful syntax highlighting with both. You can find Notepad++ syntax highlighting in the link in the description. I personally use Visual Studio Code with Joel Day's Coilsnake extension. There are a good amount of YML files that allow you to edit a lot of data. If you want an in-depth look, I'd recommend looking at the Coilsnake Wiki. Enemy configuration table.yml has data on every enemy in the game, allowing you to easily change enemy names and stats. And the item configuration table allows you to edit items. You can get a pretty good idea what each file does just by looking at it. Once again, check out the Coilsnake Wiki. If you wish to edit dialogue, you're going to have to go an extra step beyond normal decompilation. In Coilsnake, the Decompile Script tab allows you to decompile the game's dialogue. Just put in a ROM and your project file, and you'll have a folder called CCScript. You'll find these data files have a whole bunch of text. The text isn't really in order, so it's best to take advantage of your text editor's search functionality. CCScript is a programming language that allows you to edit dialogue as well as do some special effects such as adding money, changing certain sprites, or playing sound effects. CCScript stands for Control Code Script. Control codes are basically these little commands written as some numbers inside brackets. Instead of having to write out these commands, CCScript turns some of these commands into human readable code. For example, the control code 1F02 in CScript is the sound command. Control codes use hexadecimal numbers, while CCScript commands use base 10. or just a normal counting system. Understanding hexadecimal numbers and how to read it is important for understanding control codes as well as more complex aspects of hacking. Not all control codes have a readable counterpart, so it's important to look over a list of the control codes as well as CCScript commands. You can find references for these things in the description. I hope you now have a basic understanding of some parts of Earthbound hacking. Look at the Coilsnake Wiki for more details. The purpose of this video is to give anybody interested in hacking some direction. I hope this video has helped you to start hacking. Thanks!